What's happening, vinyl community? Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you guys are when you're watching this. It's been a little bit since my last collection update. Had some time to myself today in the house on this slightly rainy Sunday morning and figured, what the hell, spur of the moment, just do a collection update with you guys. And actually, at the end of this video, I wanted to have an open dialogue with the vinyl community. And please feel free to comment below how you feel. I started collecting records in the late 80s, early 90s, and I've noticed a trend that a friend in the vinyl community recently posted a video about. Dylan at Noble Records. Dylan, if you watch this video, I don't know if you ever will, but I figured, you posted the question out there, so I figured I would respond. Is it fun anymore? Is vinyl collecting fun anymore? Or basically have a bunch of us, is there just a big amount of burnout in the community? So I'll give you my opinions on it, and like I said, I'd love for you guys to comment below and tell me what you think, whether you're a new collector, old school collector, or just somebody who's passing through and just, maybe walked into a record store once or twice and noticed a few things. So please feel free to comment below. I'd love to hear what you think. But that's for later on in the video. Now we'll get to where we're all actually here. This is a stack of stuff that I've picked up over the last 6-7 months. It's in no particular order, stuff that I've picked up online, in person, etc. And it goes all over the place. So without further ado, let's get started. First one is a band that is actually a band that I grew up with, being a born in the 80s, grew up in the 90s, early 2000s. But I didn't really come to appreciate their stuff until later. When I first heard them, I thought they were very much just another screaming band and didn't really think too much about it. But when I got older, I started listening to their music and really became a fan of them. This is Slipknot, All Hope Is Gone. This is an original press from 08-09. I had an opportunity to pick this album up in Charlotte on my most recent trip to go see a few friends in the vinyl community. Had a lot of stuff that I was trying to pick up for RSD, so I let this one slide, but started getting the itch to pick this one up. Found this one online at a really good price, solid condition. This album is actually very much, to me, the beginning of a departure for this band. If you listen to their self-titled, Iowa, etc., they were in a very different place than they are on this album. This was the last album that they did, where Paul Gray was still part of the lineup before he tragically passed. It takes a very different tone. Two of Corey's, the lead singer, Corey Taylor's, honestly, deepest lyric writing, in my opinion. The song Snuff, which talks about his breakup with, I believe it was his longtime girlfriend at the time, and Till We Die, which is the last track on this album. They're both very much in the realm of melodic and thought-provoking, whereas like a lot of their material, especially on their self-titled, is just very in-your-face and raw, whereas a lot of the songs on here tend to be more thought-provoking. But honestly, it's up there to me. It's this one in Iowa for me is their top two as far as I'm concerned. But great album. Very happy to have this in the collection. This next one, you've seen this album on the channel a few times, but I've never been happy with the copy that I had, and I'm now very happy with the one that I've got. Honestly, it's about as good as we're going to get, honestly. This is Ricky Allonga, Sunshine Love. It's an original press. It's a must-have Zamrock album, in my opinion, if you're not familiar with Zamrock. Dylan at Noble Records has some great videos about the music. It's all music that came out of the African country of Zambia, formerly known as Northern Rhodesia before 1965. A lot of psychedelic stuff, a lot of hard rock stuff. problem is finding original pressings from Africa in general, not just Zambia, but in general, that doesn't sound like a fireplace, a crackling fire on a fireplace, is almost impossible. I'd owned 2 copies of this prior. This is the first one I've owned on the original orange label. I've owned 2 on the black and gold, which are actually pretty difficult to find. And they both played okay, but they just weren't up to snuff in my opinion. And a lot of people have told me, you know, you're not going to find clean copies, they just don't exist. A few people that I follow in the community on Instagram have found clean copies, and they didn't spend a small fortune on them. So I was patient, and one of my normal sources that lives here in the U.S. had this copy for sale. Sent me clips of it. It was perfect, with the exception of a little bit of splitting on the spine there. But aside from that, the fidelity on this is amazing. And if you're not familiar with Ricky Allonga, definitely check him out. A legend in the Zamrock community, and he went from doing psychedelic rock to some of his albums tended to lean more on the reggae side towards the tail end of his career. But this is a great album. Reissues of this exist. You can pick it up for probably 30-40 bucks. His other album that I would highly recommend is Zambia, which I believe came out right before this. I could be wrong. That's one that's still on my list, but it's very hard to find that one in clean shape. But very happy with this copy. Definitely a forever copy for me. Like I said, aside from a little bit of damage on the edge and the spine, I mean, fairly clean back, really clean front. Can't ask for more, honestly. Funny story about this next one. So every summer I do a trip to Colorado Springs, and there's one store in particular that I check out called Leech Pit Records in Colorado Springs. Adam's got some amazing stuff on his wall, and he had been teasing a original pressing of this album, which I brought down a stack of trades, picked it up, kept it for a little bit, but something else came up and decided to let the OG go. And I was regretting it, and then another friend of the vinyl community had this particular pressing up for sale at a great price, and I snagged it. This is Marilyn Manson, Mechanical Animals. This is an unofficial pressing. It's a colored wax. It's just one of my stickers that I put on there to differentiate it from an original press. First disc is blue. Second disc is like a purple smoky pattern. Just played the first disc. Sounds really good. Unofficial pressings tend to be very mixed. Some of them sound really good. Some of them sound like garbage. This one sounds really good. To me, honestly, I'd say this is probably his most commercial album. The concept behind it was basically taking influences from bands, bands and artists of the 70s. I'm trying to think here. Basically, the big one that comes to mind is David Bowie. One disc is very much of that style. The second disc is pretty much his all typical Manson stuff. Regardless of what you think of him in his personal life, which obviously I'm not going to get into that, he's an amazing artist. And another one that I came to like later on in life. I discovered him in 95, 96 when I was in middle school. A bunch of guys that I hung out with were big into Manson and Nine Inch Nails. Nine Inch Nails I got into right away. Manson, I sort of had to dip my toe into the water, find out what I liked. And to me, this is honestly, if you're new to Manson, this is the one to check out, see if you like him. But as far as even being an unofficial press, it sounds great. And the OG found a good home. So this next one came courtesy of Mono Records in California. If you don't follow him on Instagram, you should. He always posts stuff almost every day. It's all variety stuff, African stuff, world music, Britpop, etc. This is the box set for the Verve 4th. I'm not going to take out the whole thing because there's a lot of stuff in there. There's like the CD, there's a giant booklet, everything else. Aside from a little damage on the top, the box is in pretty good shape. This album to me is actually a must-have as far as if you like Britpop. Obviously, the Verve are one of the big boys when it comes to that genre of music. It's them, Oasis, Blur, Pulp, etc. This is, I believe, the last studio album they ever did. I don't think they've done a single one since. Richard Ashcroft, the lead singer of the Verve, has had a pretty successful solo career. There are parts of this that sound very almost shoegaze, and then there are parts that sound very much like traditional Britpop that everybody's used to. You can find the originals of this fairly easy. Most of them are still overseas, but they tend to be 50, 60, 70 bucks. The box set, a little bit more so. Honestly, I kind of wish this cover was actually the cover for the actual album instead of vice versa, but really happy with this, played it. I think the original owner might have played it once or twice, but sounds really good, and again, another one I'm really excited to have. Next one comes courtesy of Dylan at Noble Records. Dylan has fairly recently started his own record label, and what I love about Dylan is his passion for obscure music that no one's really had a chance to listen to before, and his passion for finding originals of this stuff and knowing how collectors are. They want to listen to the music, but you can't always shell out $1,000 for an original pressing of an album. He started this label to kind of draw attention to some of these artists, and his exclusives always sell out generally, within a few days. Sometimes they hang around for a little bit, but they generally always sell out. But this is his first release that he's actually done on his own label. This is Underground Fire. This was probably the most limited, but this is the Pinwheel edition. I call it the Peppermint edition, but it's a pinwheel colored vinyl. The band is from Monroe, North Carolina, and I'm actually going to read you some of the liner notes, or the little sticker that Dylan put together here. And the explosive sounds of Underground Fire originated from 5 high school kids in North Carolina, consisting of teenage angst and blazing guitar riffs. This virtually unknown gem is now available for the first time since 1972. Original pressings of this do not exist. I think there's one for sale on Discogs right now, and it was Dylan's former copy, and it's not cheap. Honestly solid garage rock in my opinion. Sounds great. The mastering they did on this was really, really good. And honestly, Dylan, again, if you watch this video, great. If not, oh well. But your first release on your own label that was really yours. Kudos, dude. Sounds amazing. The next couple are actually, let me do this here. Next couple are something you probably wouldn't expect me to listen to, but again, I have a very eclectic taste in music. These next two came courtesy of a Discog seller or not Discog, excuse me, Whatnot seller who become friends with. This name's Gunnar on Whatnot. First one is the 12-inch for this Orbital. Lush. Orbital's a great band in the electronic scene. You've probably heard their track Hallison, and I'm probably butchering the name of that, also called On. It's been used in so many films. It was used in the original Mortal Kombat movie from '95. It was used in Hackers, another '90s movie. They're very much an iconic '90s electronic act. They have some amazing stuff. This 12-inch features the track Lush, and it came out in '93. Very difficult to find their stuff on vinyl, as far as original pressings go. He happened to find a copy of this as dead stock in a bin in a shop close to where he lives, and put up for sale. The second I saw it previewed in his show, I knew I had to have it. I've yet to find another copy that's as clean as this. They're generally overseas, and they're in like the VG condition. This one's X mint, almost bordering near mint in my opinion. It sounds great. Little sticker residue on the top where the hype sticker is, but aside from that, it sounds great. And the next one is another 12-inch called Emerson's Late Night Dub, full-length version. Again, mid to late 90s electronic. Didn't know a thing about this. Thankfully, it was on YouTube. Sampled it, loved it, had to have it, and got it at a really good price. Next two are actually from another Whatnot seller. He goes by records from the 60s. He's out of Canada. Big hip hop fan. Big hip hop fan. But also loves Oasis. Big Britpop fan as well. And I generally tune in for his hip hop stuff because you cannot find original hip hop pressings in good shape. They just are really difficult to find. They're usually overseas. He ran these recently, or fairly recently, and I had to pick these up because they were just great prices. First one is 12-inch De La Soul, Me, Myself, and I. Iconic track. The album that this came from could not be done today because of the whole controversy with sampling, the amount of copyrights and money that would have had to be paid out. Would have made this album almost impossible to release. Me, Myself, and I is obviously the standout track on the album. Iconic. And it's got multiple versions of the track on this. I love the fact it has the hype sticker on there. Nice solid yellow and white. Beautiful copy. And this next one is actually one that I wasn't too familiar with. Again, I had to sample it on YouTube. He ran a 12-inch sale not too long ago, and this was in there. And this is Funk Dubious. Wop Babalubop, which is actually, if you're familiar with older music, the sample is taken from the Little Richard song. Features members of Cypress Hill on it. The whole album that this track came from is great, but I've yet to find the full length. But the single sounds great, and it's a great introduction to these particular artists. And aside from like a little, I'm almost thinking that's probably from a DJ. Record's clean, so great stuff. Getting down the last couple, guys. This next one had a really funny story. So I accidentally left a player in my car on a hot day, and the battery swelled in it. Called Best Buy because I saw they did repairs. Scheduled it, took it down there. They took one look and said, we can't do anything. So I called customer service and said, hey, you guys said you could do something. You can't. What's going on? So they gave me a credit for an online purchase. Of course, I'm going to look for vinyl. Saw this and picked this up. This is Noel Gallagher's latest solo release, High Flying Birds. Council Skies with heavyweight vinyl, bonus 7-inch. Honestly, what I love about Noel's stuff is it's slightly different from Oasis in the sense that it allows him to experiment more. And because of that, his albums are all over the place. I mean, I'm happy about the reunion news with Oasis. I was very lucky to see them in 2005. It was one of my favorite shows that I've ever seen. I got a chance to meet Noel and get his signature. And one of these days I'll have to show you the single that I got signed. But great album. And if you haven't checked out any of his solo work with High Flying Birds, definitely check it out. Highly recommend it. This next one is actually one that was supposed to be in an RSD video, but there's a little backstory to this. So this album, which is Dolores OBrien, Are You Listening? This was her first solo album post-Cranberries. And honestly, it's an amazing album. I've always loved this album. I was introduced to this album when I was working as part of a street team for a venue in Dallas. Ran into a rep. We were talking, told him I was a Cranberries fan, and he happened to have a promo copy of this on CD, took it home, listened to it, and fell in love. It has never been available officially on vinyl until this past RSD. This album was supposed to only be limited to 600 copies worldwide. Well, not worldwide initially. It was supposed to be only Europe only. That's what they said on the website and everything else. Come to find out, copies of this did turn up in the U.S. There actually one copy turned up in Charlotte when I was there. One copy, it was gone in the first 10 minutes. Another copy turned up, ironically enough, about an hour. The shop, it's an hour and 14 minutes away from me, and it actually stayed on the shelf for a little while. So the idea that they don't always believe what you read on the website. Sometimes they get it wrong. But this is on white vinyl. Beautiful sounding, amazing mastering on this for vinyl, especially being its first time on this format. But because I am the fan that I am, I did not want to lose a chance at this. So I actually ended up buying it twice. I bought it from a shop in Florida and I bought it overseas. Both copies turned up. I kept this one. The other copy went to a good friend in the vinyl community, and you know who you are if you comment. You know, if you comment below, and I know you love the copy that you got. But great album. It's very tragic, unfortunately, that we will no longer be able to hear new material from Dolores. It's either solo or from the Cranberries. It's very tragic how she lost her life, and it wasn't that long ago, actually. But at least her music will live on. If you've never heard this album, stream it. YouTube, Spotify, whatever. I highly, highly, highly recommend hearing this. Her lyrics, they cut you to the bone in so many different ways. My favorite track on this album is actually not one of the singles. It's the song Angel Fire. It just always puts me in a good mood. But great album, and highly, highly, highly recommend. The final one is one that you guys may have heard, you guys may have seen before. I'm not sure, so I included it. I picked this one up shortly before my trip, a few months before. Again, 90s, 2000s kid, and regardless of what you think of the lead singer, this is still an amazing album. This is Whole Celebrity Skin. This is an original 98 European press. It's never released on vinyl in the US until many, many years later. Found this through a seller in Japan. Sounds really, really good. Might have been played once or twice. Again, same thing. Aside from a little bit of creasing at the top, really nice shape. There's a lot of debate about this album. How much of this Courtney Love, the lead singer of Hole, and formerly Mrs. Kurt Cobain, was involved in this album. There's rumors that it was written by another very famous artist in the grunge community. I'm not going to get into that. You form your own opinions. If you want to go into the backstory, there's plenty on there. But it's an amazing album, very highly polished, and I'm just happy to have it on vinyl. I've owned many copies of this on CD. So to close out the video, the subject that I want to talk to you guys about briefly is, again, something that came up in Dylan at Noble Records, one of his videos recently. He said, is record collecting fun anymore? Now, there's many sides to this whole debate. Me personally, as I've said before, I was born in '85, came of age in the 90s and early 2000s. I remember very fondly my mother taking me to the local record shop, me digging through the dollar bins and finding amazing stuff, and stuff that I wasn't familiar with. She was very knowledgeable and would always direct me towards, yeah, go ahead and grab it. That's really good stuff. You'll like it. As time has gone on, like many collectibles, baseball cards, comic books, even shoes, vintage clothing, whatever, things have changed a lot. You've got newer collectors that are getting into this for the first time. They're not very familiar with vinyl. You had the COVID pandemic. People were at home. They had surpluses of money that they could just drop at the, oh, I really like this, I'm going to do this. So you couldn't go out, so, people were buying like crazy. Obviously, things like Record Store Day, which to me is sort of a double-edged sword. I love the fact that you can get stuff on vinyl that sometimes has never been available before, but I also hate the greediness of Record Store Day. And I also hate the flipper aspect of Record Store Day. That fans often get cheated, real fans often get cheated out of what they spent all night, sometimes waiting in line to get, only to find a flipper has grabbed the last couple copies or last copy and put it online for a 50%, 100% markup. You know, $29 album ends up selling for $200 in a matter of hours. There's a problem with that, in my opinion. You know, it's capitalism. You know, blah 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 blah, whatever. But to me, as a from the fan aspect, I feel like it's wrong. But that's another thing entirely. But back on the subject at hand, is record collecting still fun? AKA, do you get burnout from it? Are we basically getting burned out? There are negative aspects of the music industry, just like there are in any industry. I feel like the 1,000 variants of when an album comes out, I think are ridiculous. I think that the super exclusives are a ridiculous thing. I think that's the overpricing at times can be a little bit of a turnoff. But there's also another side to this. And this album here is an example. So this is one of my prized possessions. This is a 03 original pressing of Linkin Park's Meteor. You cannot find this pressing very easily, and when you do, it's $300, $400, $500. This album has been repressed multiple times. It's a big set. It's one of their. I think they're probably their best-selling album that they've put out as a band. And you can always find a repress, but finding an original pressing, if it's available, can sometimes cost you a pretty penny. The kind of music I listen to, nu metal, alternative, and jazz. You think $400 is high to pay for an OG of this? Try buying a original Blue Note first pressing of Blue Train or Hank Mobley release, or Sonny Clark's Cole Struttin', for example. $1,200 album plus or more. So there's that old saying: if you want to play, you got to pay. I wish it wasn't like that, but it's supply and demand. You have some of the newer collectors, especially the Taylor Swift fans, things like that. You know, some of those albums, I mean, are not even 5 years old, and they're $1,000 albums now, hey, whatever. But to me, I've gone through different mindsets or different eras of my collecting, and I'm just to the point now where I'll buy what I want to buy. I'm not going to get into the whole hype thing. I have a list of grails that I'm currently working down. I work on one every couple months. If it costs me a little more down the line because one was further down the list and I couldn't find one for a while, that's fine. I would rather be happy with 50 albums that I know that I will absolutely love and will always listen to than 1,000 albums of stuff that I might listen to once and just sit on the shelf. I'm not a completist. If you understand this, I'm not a completist, I'm an elitist. In other words, I want my collection to be high and tight, and I'm okay with skipping out on a lot of the other stuff. And because I choose to do that, I'm going to pay more. It's just the way it is. And it's not something that I like, but at the same time, it's something we all have to deal with. But the decision that you would have to make yourself, and I say this to each and every one of you that watch this video, is the juice really worth the squeeze? Do you want to go after original pressings, or are you happy with a $25 repress? That's kind of the way you have to look at it. And some of this stuff, there are no represses. It's original pressing or nothing. Or there might be a bootleg press somewhere, but that's it. The Zamrock stuff, the Psych stuff, the prog stuff that you'll see in videos like Dylan's channel, there's not a lot of represses, if none at all. So if you want it on vinyl, you're going to have to pay that price, or just forget about it. And it's just the way it is. As far as the state of the vinyl community and the whole burnout thing, I love music. I personally will never get burned out. I might walk away from it for a little while, but I'll always love vinyl. I'll always love music. as long as you always love music, I don't think that you can really get burnout. You might change how you collect, you might change how you listen to things, but I don't think that you'll ever get burnout. But that's my opinion. The opinions, as that old saying, are, you give the language, are like assholes. Everybody's got one. But with that being said, guys, hope you like this video. If you like what you see on this channel, please click like and subscribe. It's been a pleasure as always. Enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll talk again soon. You guys take it easy.